3 years of marriage. 3 years of waiting for a man who never came home. Tonight, Amelia Carter stands alone in her penthouse bathroom, staring at two pink lines that will change everything. But when she finally tells her husband about the baby growing inside her, his response will shatter what's left of her world. One rainy night, one chance encounter, one dangerous man who offers her a way out. This is the story of a woman who disappeared from her own life and found something far more powerful waiting in the shadows. If you're ready for a story about second chances and forbidden protection, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain fell like accusations against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, each drop a small betrayal echoing through the silence. Amelia Carter stood motionless in the center of the living room, her phone clutched in one hand, the screen dark and unresponsive to her needs. The champagne she'd bought sat warming on the marble counter, two crystal flutes positioned beside it, with the kind of desperate optimism that made her chest ache. 3 years. Today marked 3 years since she'd stood in a courthouse in Manhattan and promised forever to Marcus Hale. 3 years since she'd believed that marriage meant partnership, that love could grow from ambition and shared goals. 3 years of learning, slowly and painfully, that she'd been wrong about everything. The penthouse sprawled around her, all designer furniture and carefully curated art, each piece selected by Marcus's decorator. Amelia had never chosen anything in this space. She existed here, a ghost haunting rooms that belonged to someone else's vision of success. Even now, dressed in the emerald silk dress she'd bought specifically for tonight, she felt like an intruder in her own home. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened windows, superimposed over the glittering Brooklyn skyline. 28 years old, though she felt ancient tonight. Her auburn hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and the dress hugged curves that Marcus hadn't noticed in months, maybe longer. She'd stopped counting the nights he came home late, stopped waiting up with questions that only earned her dismissive answers. The phone in her hand buzzed. Hope flared in her chest, bright and pathetic, before she saw the message. Working late. Don't wait up. 4 words. Not even an apology. Not even an acknowledgement that today was supposed to matter. Amelia's fingers trembled as she typed a response, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. What was there to say? That she'd planned a special dinner? That she'd been waiting for the right moment all evening? That hidden in her pocket, wrapped in tissue paper like a secret too fragile to expose, was a pregnancy test showing 2 pink lines? She pressed her hand against her stomach, still flat beneath the silk. 6 weeks, according to the doctor she'd seen yesterday. 6 weeks of carrying a life that Marcus didn't know about yet. She'd imagined telling him tonight, imagined his face softening with surprise and joy. Imagined for one foolish moment that a baby might bridge the distance that had grown between them. The champagne mocked her from across the room. Amelia grabbed her coat, a long black wool piece that Marcus had bought her last Christmas, probably selected by his assistant, and left the penthouse without bothering to turn off the lights. Let him come home to illumination. Let him wonder, just for a moment, where she'd gone. The elevator descended in weighted silence, her reflection trapped in the polished brass doors. She looked like someone playing dress-up, a girl pretending to be the kind of woman who belonged in penthouses and emerald silk. The doors opened onto the lobby, and the doorman's eyes flickered with concern. "Mrs. Hale, can I call you a car?" "No thank you, Robert. I'd like to walk." His eyebrows lifted slightly. It was raining, and she was in heels, but he simply nodded and held the door open. "Have a good evening, ma'am." The rain hit her immediately, cold and cleansing. Amelia walked without direction, her heels clicking against wet pavement, the city lights blurring through the downpour. She should have grabbed an umbrella, should have changed shoes, should have done 1,000 things differently, starting 3 years ago when she'd convinced herself that Marcus Hale's attention meant something more than temporary interest. They'd met at a corporate gala, back when Amelia was fresh out of Columbia with a degree in financial analysis and dreams of making a difference. Marcus had been magnetic that night, successful, confident, 12 years her senior and impossibly sophisticated. He'd listened when she talked about market trends and economic policy, had seemed genuinely impressed by her insights. For 6 months, he'd courted her with the same intense focus he applied to business deals. She'd mistaken that focus for love. The wedding had been small, pragmatic. Marcus didn't believe in extravagant ceremonies, and Amelia had no family to invite anyway. Her parents had died in a car accident during her sophomore year of college, leaving her alone in the world except for a few distant cousins she'd lost touch with. Marcus had seemed like an anchor, someone stable and established who could give her the family she'd lost. Instead, he'd given her isolation wrapped in luxury. Amelia found herself in front of a restaurant, warm light spilling from its windows onto the rain-slicked street. Bella Notte, the sign proclaimed in elegant script. Through the glass, she could see white tablecloths and flickering candles, couples leaning close in conversation. The kind of intimate dinner she'd imagined having tonight. She pushed through the door before she could talk herself out of it. The hostess looked up with a professional smile that faltered slightly when she took in Amelia's rain-soaked appearance. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "No, Amelia's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, forced strength into it. "Just me. Table for one, if you have it." Something softened in the hostess's expression. "Of course. Right this way." She was led to a small table near the back, tucked into a corner that felt both private and lonely. Amelia ordered wine before remembering she couldn't drink it, then changed it to sparkling water with a tight smile. The hostess didn't comment on the substitution, for which Amelia was grateful. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversation and classical music. Amelia sat with her back straight, trying to look like someone who chose to dine alone on their anniversary. Someone confident and independent rather than abandoned. Her coat dripped onto the floor. Her hair hung in damp strands. She'd never felt more pathetic. "Excuse me." The voice was deep, touched with an accent she couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, smoothed by years in America. Amelia looked up and found herself staring at a man who made the air shift around him. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the candlelight. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, the kind of tailoring that cost more than Amelia's monthly salary. But it was his presence that struck her, a quiet intensity that suggested power held carefully in check. "I apologize for the intrusion," he said, his voice measured and precise. "But you dropped this outside." He held out his hand. In his palm lay the pregnancy test, wrapped in its tissue paper that had come partially undone in the rain. Amelia's heart stopped. Heat flooded her face as she snatched it from his hand, shoving it into her purse with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she managed, not meeting his eyes. She expected him to leave, to return to whatever table he'd come from with a story about the crazy woman dining alone. Instead, he remained standing there, his dark eyes studying her with unsettling focus. "Forgive me," he said quietly, "but you look like someone who has recently received very bad news." Amelia let out a sound caught between a laugh and a sob. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who has learned to read people." He paused, then gestured to the empty chair across from her. "May I?" Every instinct told her to say no. She didn't know this man. He'd seen her pregnancy test, witnessed her humiliation. The smart thing would be to refuse politely and maintain what little dignity she had left. "Please," she heard herself say. He sat with fluid grace, folding his tall frame into the chair as if he belonged there. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. He was older than Marcus, maybe mid-40s, but he wore it differently. Where Marcus's age made him feel distant and paternal, this man's maturity suggested depth and experience. "Dante Moretti," he said, offering his hand across the table. "Amelia." She shook his hand, surprised by the warmth of his grip, the calluses that suggested he was more than just another corporate executive. "Amelia Carter." She'd hesitated before using her maiden name, the name she'd kept for work while becoming Mrs. Hale everywhere else. But tonight, she didn't want to be Mrs. Hale. Mrs. Hale was the woman whose husband forgot their anniversary. Mrs. Hale was invisible. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Amelia, though I wish the circumstances were happier." Dante's eyes never left her face, and there was something in his gaze that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in years. "You're dining alone on a night like this. That suggests either remarkable independence or profound loneliness. Given what I saw in your eyes when you took back that test, I suspect the latter." Amelia should have been offended by his directness. Instead, she found it oddly refreshing. "You're very perceptive for a stranger," I've found that sometimes strangers are easier to talk to than the people who are supposed to know us best. He leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. They have no expectations, no history to cloud their judgment. Would you like to tell me why you're here alone, Amelia Carter? Or should we maintain the comfortable fiction that you're a woman who simply prefers her own company? She studied him for a long moment, this man who'd appeared from nowhere and seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed composure. There was something dangerous about him. She could sense it in the way other diners glanced his way with a mixture of respect and wariness, in the way the staff had straightened when he walked through the restaurant. This was not a man accustomed to being told no. And yet, there was also kindness in his face, a gentleness in how he'd returned her pregnancy test without judgment or prying questions. "It's my anniversary," she said finally, the words spilling out before she could stop them. 3 years today. I've been planning this evening for weeks, special dinner, champagne, the whole romantic gesture. And he... Her voice broke. She took a breath, forced herself to continue. He sent a text saying he was working late. 4 words. Working late, don't wait up. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his dark eyes. And the test? He doesn't know yet. I was going to tell him tonight. Amelia laughed bitterly. I actually thought maybe it would change things, that we could be a family, that he might finally see me as more than just another fixture in his perfectly decorated life. But you don't believe that anymore. It wasn't a question. Amelia shook her head slowly, feeling something break loose inside her chest. No, I don't think I believe in much of anything anymore. The waiter appeared and Dante ordered in rapid Italian that made the young man beam with pleasure. After he left, Dante turned his attention back to Amelia. When I was younger, I made the mistake of believing that love could be earned through sacrifice, that if I gave enough, became enough, the people I cared about would eventually value what I offered. He paused, his fingers drumming once against the white tablecloth. I learned, painfully, that love which must be earned is not love at all. It's transaction. And you, Amelia Carter, deserve more than to be another line item in someone's ledger. You don't know anything about my marriage, she said, but there was no heat in it. I know you're sitting alone in a restaurant on your anniversary, pregnant and crying, while your husband works late. Dante's voice remained gentle, but there was steel beneath it. I know you used your maiden name when you introduced yourself. I know the dress you're wearing is expensive, but not your style. The cut is too severe, too corporate. Someone else chose it for you, just like someone else decorated your home and planned your life and made you feel like a ghost in your own existence. Amelia stared at him, her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. How could you possibly... Because I've spent my life reading people, understanding what they hide and what they reveal. And you, Bella, are a woman who has been disappearing for a very long time. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. She had been disappearing. Piece by piece, choice by choice, she'd allowed Marcus to erase her until she barely recognized herself anymore. The ambitious analyst who'd graduated top of her class had become a silent ornament in a penthouse, waiting for scraps of attention from a man who'd stopped seeing her years ago. I don't know how to stop, she whispered. You already have. Dante leaned forward, his intensity focused entirely on her. You walked out tonight. You came here instead of waiting in that empty apartment. You're still fighting, Amelia, even if you don't realize it yet. The waiter returned with their food, pasta that Amelia hadn't ordered, but that smelled incredible. Dante had somehow known what she needed, just as he seemed to know everything else about her. They ate in silence for a while, and Amelia found herself relaxing despite everything. There was something profoundly comfortable about Dante's presence, as if she'd known him far longer than these few strange minutes. He didn't press her with questions or offer empty platitudes. He simply existed across from her, solid and real, while the rain continued to fall outside. Tell me about yourself, she said finally, needing to shift focus away from her own misery. What do you do, Dante Moretti? A slight smile touched his lips. I solve problems for people who have nowhere else to turn. That's deliberately vague. Yes, it is. His smile widened fractionally. Let's say I've built a career out of understanding human nature and the systems that govern our lives. I help people navigate difficult situations, remove obstacles, create new possibilities when the old ones have failed. You make it sound almost mystical. There's nothing mystical about it, I simply see things clearly while others are blinded by emotion or convention. He took a sip of wine, his dark eyes never leaving her face. For instance, I can see that you're trapped in a marriage that's slowly killing who you are. I can see that you're pregnant and terrified because bringing a child into that situation feels impossible. And I can see that you're already considering your options, even if you haven't admitted it to yourself yet. Amelia set down her fork, her hands shaking. What options? I have a child to think about now. I can't what? Leave? Rebuild? Choose yourself instead of a man who's already chosen to abandon you? Dante's voice remained soft, but there was challenge in it. Those are all choices, Amelia. Difficult ones, certainly, but choices nonetheless. You don't understand. Marcus, he has connections, resources. If I tried to leave, if I fought him on anything, he'd destroy me. My career, my reputation, everything. Would he? Dante tilted his head slightly. Or is that what you've been conditioned to believe? That you're powerless? That you need him? That stepping away would mean losing everything? He leaned forward again, and there was something almost fierce in his expression now. I have news for you, Bella. You've already lost everything that matters. The question is whether you're brave enough to admit it. Tears burned in Amelia's eyes. I'm not brave. I'm just tired. Exhaustion and bravery are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes the bravest thing is simply refusing to continue down a path that's destroying you. Dante reached into his jacket and pulled out a card, sliding it across the table. It was simple, heavy cardstock with just a phone number embossed in black. If you decide you want to disappear, call this number. I can help you vanish so completely that even someone with Marcus Hale's resources won't find you. You and your child could start fresh. Build a life that's entirely yours. Amelia picked up the card with trembling fingers. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Let's say I have reasons of my own for helping women escape difficult situations. Something dark crossed Dante's face, gone before Amelia could identify it. And perhaps I see in you something worth saving. Someone who deserves a chance to remember who they were before they learned to make themselves small. This is insane, Amelia said, but she didn't put the card down. I can't just disappear. That's not how real life works. Isn't it? Dante's smile was sad now. People disappear every day, Amelia. They leave marriages, cities, entire lives behind when the weight becomes too much to carry. The only difference is whether they do it with planning and protection or whether they simply run blindly and hope for the best. The restaurant had begun to empty around them, other diners finishing their meals and heading back into the rainy night. Amelia glanced at her phone and saw it was past 11. No new messages from Marcus. He'd probably already forgotten she existed. I should go, she said, though she made no move to stand. You should, Dante agreed, but his tone suggested he understood her reluctance. But before you do, I want you to ask yourself one question. When you imagine the future, 10 years from now, 20, can you honestly see yourself still waiting in that penthouse for a man who will never prioritize you? Can you imagine raising your child in that environment, teaching them by example that love means accepting scraps and calling it enough? Amelia's throat tightened. She thought about her own childhood, her parents' warm, chaotic house full of laughter and fierce affection. They'd fought sometimes, sure, but they'd also danced in the kitchen and left love notes for each other and made every day feel like an adventure. That was what she'd wanted to give her own children someday. That sense of being cherished and seen and absolutely essential to someone's happiness. Marcus would never give her that. She'd known it for a long time, probably since the first year of their marriage, when his attention had shifted from her to the next business deal, the next acquisition, the next thing he could control and perfect. I can't think about this right now, she said, standing abruptly. The room tilted slightly, and Dante was there immediately, his hand steadying her elbow. Easy, he murmured. When did you last eat? I don't remember. This morning, maybe? The pasta had been the first real food she'd had all day, she realized. She'd been too nervous about the evening to eat lunch. Dante's jaw tightened. Let me take you home. You shouldn't be walking in this weather. I can manage. I'm sure you can. You've been managing for 3 years, haven't you? Managing and surviving and pretending everything is fine. His hand was still on her elbow, warm and solid. But just this once, let someone take care of you. No strings, no expectations, just simple human kindness. Amelia wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain the fiction that she was fine, that she could walk back to her empty penthouse in the rain and face whatever came next alone. But she was so tired of being alone, so tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. "Okay," she whispered. Dante's car was waiting outside, a sleek black sedan with a driver who appeared the moment they stepped onto the sidewalk, umbrella already open. The man's eyes flickered to Amelia with professional neutrality, taking in her bedraggled appearance without comment. "Mrs. Carter needs to go home," Dante said, opening the car door for her. "I'll follow in my own vehicle." "You don't have to," Amelia began, but Dante cut her off with a gentle smile. "I know I don't have to. I want to. Humor me, Bella." She slid into the car and Dante closed the door with careful precision. Through the tinted window, she watched him speak quietly to the driver, saw the man nod with the kind of deference that suggested Dante was someone important, someone powerful. The drive to her building took 15 minutes through rain-slicked streets. Amelia sat in silence, the pregnancy test heavy in her purse, Dante's card burning against her palm. She should throw it away, should forget this entire strange evening and focus on her marriage, on trying to make things work with Marcus. But even as she thought it, she knew she wouldn't. Something had shifted tonight, some fundamental understanding of herself and her life. Dante had named the things she'd been too afraid to acknowledge. She'd been disappearing. And she was tired of being invisible. The car pulled up outside her building, and Robert opened the door with his usual professional courtesy. "Mrs. Hale, I hope you had a pleasant evening." "Thank you, Robert." Amelia stepped out, and a second car pulled up behind them. Dante emerged from the passenger seat, and she saw Robert's eyes widen fractionally before his expression smoothed into neutrality again. "Mr. Moretti," Robert said, and there was something in his tone, respect touched with wariness, that confirmed Amelia's suspicion that Dante was far more than just a helpful stranger. "Robert," Dante nodded to the doorman, then turned to Amelia. "I'll see you to your door." "That's really not necessary." "Perhaps not. But I'd like to." They rode the elevator in silence, Dante's presence filling the small space with quiet intensity. Amelia was hyper-aware of him beside her, the subtle scent of his cologne, the way he stood with perfect stillness, the sense that he was always watching, always assessing. The elevator doors opened onto her floor, and Amelia led the way to her penthouse. Her hand shook as she found her keys, and Dante's hand covered hers gently, steadying them. "Breathe," he said quietly. "You're safe." She unlocked the door and pushed it open. The lights were still on, just as she'd left them. The champagne still sat on the counter, the crystal flute still waited beside it. Everything exactly as it had been, except Amelia herself had changed. "Thank you," she said, turning to face Dante. "For dinner, for the ride, for—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "For seeing me, for making me feel human again, for offering me a way out even though we're strangers." "You don't have to thank me." Dante's dark eyes held hers, and something passed between them, some understanding that went deeper than words. "But if you need help, when you need help, call that number. Day or night, Amelia. I meant what I said. I can make you disappear." "Why?" she asked again, desperate to understand. "Why would you do this for me?" Dante was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally he said, "Because a long time ago, someone I cared about needed to disappear, and I wasn't there to help her. She paid for that with her life." His voice remained steady, but Amelia could hear the old grief beneath it. "I can't change the past, but I can make sure other women have the choice she never got." Before Amelia could respond, before she could process the weight of what he'd just revealed, Dante stepped back into the elevator. "Remember," he said as the doors began to close, "you're not as powerless as you've been taught to believe." Then he was gone, and Amelia stood alone in her doorway, clutching a stranger's business card and feeling more awake than she had in 3 years. She walked into the penthouse and looked around at the perfect furniture, the curated art, the life Marcus had built without her input. Then she looked down at her stomach, at the place where their child grew, and made a decision. Tomorrow, she would tell Marcus about the pregnancy. She would give him one chance, just one, to be the man she'd once believed he could be. To choose his family over his work, his wife over his ambitions. And if he refused, If he proved to be exactly who she feared he was, then she would call Dante Moretti's number and learn what it meant to disappear. The rain continued to fall outside, washing the city clean, and Amelia Carter stood in her empty penthouse and waited for morning to come. Morning came too quickly, and not quickly enough. Amelia had spent the night curled on the couch, still wearing her emerald dress, watching the city lights blur through rain-streaked windows. Sleep had been impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante's dark gaze, heard his words echoing in her mind. "You've already lost everything that matters." Around 6, she heard the penthouse door open. Marcus's footsteps were quiet in the hallway, probably trying not to wake her. She sat up, smoothing her dress, and waited. He appeared in the doorway of the living room, loosening his tie with the automatic gesture of a man who'd performed the motion 10,000 times. Marcus Hale was handsome in the way of successful men, tall, fit from his personal trainer sessions, his salt and pepper hair styled perfectly even at this hour. He wore his 40 years well, carried his wealth with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned whether he deserved it. His eyes landed on her, and surprise flickered across his features. "Amelia, you're awake." "I never went to sleep." She stood, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. "We need to talk, Marcus." Something in her tone made him pause. His hand fell away from his tie, and he studied her with the kind of analytical focus he usually reserved for quarterly reports. "Is something wrong?" The question was so absurd she almost laughed. 3 years of neglect, of being treated like expensive furniture, and he had to ask if something was wrong. But she swallowed the bitter response and reached into her purse, pulling out the pregnancy test. "I'm pregnant," she said, holding it out to him. 6 weeks. Marcus stared at the test like it was a foreign object, something that didn't belong in his carefully ordered world. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he crossed to the bar and poured himself a scotch, despite the early hour. "I see," he said finally, his back to her. "That's all you have to say?" Amelia's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "Marcus, we're having a baby. I hoped." "You hoped what, exactly?" He turned to face her, and the coldness in his expression made her step back. "That this would fix things between us? That a child would somehow make this marriage into something it's never been?" The words hit like physical blows. "What are you talking about?" Marcus took a long drink of scotch, then set the glass down with precise care. "Amelia, let's not pretend. We both know this marriage was a mistake. I was looking for someone who understood my world, someone who could be an asset to my career. You were looking for security after losing your parents. We wanted different things from each other, and we got exactly what we bargained for." "That's not true." But even as she said it, Amelia felt the foundation of her denial crumbling. "I loved you. I thought we could build something real. You loved the idea of me, the stability, the lifestyle, the image of success." Marcus's voice was matter-of-fact, as if discussing a failed business venture. "And I needed a wife who looked good at corporate events and didn't ask too many questions about where I was or what I was doing. It worked well enough for a while." "Worked well enough?" Amelia's hands clenched at her sides. "Marcus, we're married. We made vows. Vows that neither of us have honored for over a year now." He moved to the windows, gazing out at the morning light breaking over Brooklyn. "You want honesty? Fine. I've been seeing someone else, Melissa from the office. It's been going on for 18 months. The confirmation of what she'd suspected still managed to steal her breath. 18 months. A year and a half of lies, of late nights at the office that weren't really about work. A year and a half of feeling crazy for suspecting, of telling herself she was paranoid and insecure. "Why didn't you just leave?" she whispered. "Divorce is expensive and messy. It looks bad to the board, to investors. And you never pushed for more than I was willing to give, so I saw no reason to rock the boat." He turned back to her, and there was something almost pitying in his expression. "You've been perfectly content to live in this apartment, spend my money, play the role of Mrs. Marcus Hale. What incentive did I have to change the arrangement?" Amelia felt something inside her snap, the final thread of hope that had been holding her together. "And the baby?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't want children, Amelia. I never have. I thought I'd made that clear when we got married." "You said not yet. You said we'd discuss it later." I said what you wanted to hear because it was easier than having the conversation. He picked up his scotch again, drained it. But I'll be direct now. I don't want this child. I won't be a father to it. And if you choose to go through with this pregnancy, you'll be doing it alone. The room tilted. Amelia grabbed the back of the couch for support, her vision tunneling. You're asking me to get an abortion. I'm telling you that if you want to continue this pregnancy, it will be as a single mother. I'll file for divorce, and while I'll pay whatever child support is legally mandated, that's the extent of my involvement. Marcus set down his glass and straightened his tie with brisk efficiency. I suggest you think very carefully about what kind of life you can provide for a child on your own. Your analyst salary won't cover a tenth of what you've grown accustomed to. This isn't about money. Everything is about money, Amelia. The sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. He moved toward the bedroom, then paused. I have a meeting at 8. I'll be staying at Melissa's for the next few days while you process this. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Marcus, wait. But he was already walking away, disappearing into their bedroom to pack a bag, as if this conversation had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience in his schedule. Amelia stood frozen in the living room, her hand pressed against her stomach, the full weight of her situation crashing down on her. She was pregnant and alone. Her husband was leaving her for another woman, and she had nowhere to go, no family to turn to, no support system beyond a few work acquaintances who'd probably take Marcus's side in any divorce. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My offer stands. D.M. Dante. Somehow he'd gotten her number, though she shouldn't be surprised. A man who could offer to make someone disappear probably had resources she couldn't begin to imagine. Her fingers trembled as she pulled his card from her purse, staring at the embossed number. I can make you vanish so completely that even someone with Marcus Hale's resources won't find you. What did she have to lose? Her marriage was over. Marcus had made it clear she meant nothing to him, that their child meant nothing to him. She could stay and fight for scraps, accept whatever crumbs his lawyer deemed appropriate, raise her baby in the shadow of her own humiliation, or she could disappear. Amelia dialed the number before she could talk herself out of it. Dante answered on the first ring, his voice steady and unsurprised. Amelia, how did you know I'd call? Because you're stronger than you give yourself credit for, and because men like Marcus Hale are predictable in their cruelty. There was a pause, and she could hear city sounds in the background. Dante was already out somewhere, moving through the world while her own had collapsed. What happened? He told me to get rid of the baby, said he'd divorce me if I didn't. Her voice broke. He's been cheating on me for 18 months with someone from his office, and he stood there acting like I was the unreasonable one for being upset. Dante's silence spoke volumes. When he finally responded, his voice was deadly quiet. Where are you now? Still at the penthouse. He's packing. Said he'd be at his girlfriend's place for a few days. Good. That gives us time. She could hear him moving, the sound of a car door opening. I'm sending a car for you. Pack what matters. Documents, photos, anything with sentimental value. Leave everything else. Can you do that? I don't understand. Where am I going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere Marcus and his lawyers can't reach you while we figure out your next steps. Dante's tone gentled. Trust me, Amelia, I know this feels overwhelming right now, but you're not alone anymore. Pack your things. The car will be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead before she could respond. Amelia stared at her phone, her heart hammering. This was insane. She was actually going to run away with a man she'd met less than 12 hours ago, disappear from her own life like some kind of fugitive. But what choice did she have? She moved through the penthouse in a daze, pulling out the single suitcase she'd brought when she moved in 3 years ago. Her documents were easy. Birth certificate, social security card, passport, all filed neatly in her desk drawer because Marcus insisted on organization. Her laptop went in next, then her phone charger. Clothes felt less important, but she grabbed essentials, packing with the efficiency of someone who'd learned not to accumulate too many personal possessions. The photo album took up precious space, but she couldn't leave it. Pictures of her parents, her childhood, the life she'd lived before Marcus. Proof that she'd once been someone whole and happy. Marcus emerged from the bedroom with his own luggage, barely glancing at her. You're packing too? Yes. He nodded, apparently unconcerned with where she might be going. The apartment is paid through the end of the month. After that, you'll need to find somewhere else. I'll have my assistant send you information about available rentals in your price range. Don't bother. Amelia zipped her suitcase closed with more force than necessary. I won't be needing your assistant's help. Something in her tone made Marcus actually look at her, really look at her, for the first time in months. Amelia, don't. She held up her hand, surprised by how steady it was. You've made yourself perfectly clear, Marcus. You don't want me or our child. You never really wanted me at all. So let's not pretend you suddenly care where I go or what I do. His eyes narrowed. If you're thinking of fighting me on the divorce, I should warn you that my lawyers are very good. You won't get anything beyond what I choose to give you. I don't want anything from you. The truth of it surprised her. 24 hours ago, she would have fought for this marriage, for the life she'd built here. But Dante was right. She'd already lost everything that mattered. The rest was just furniture and square footage. Keep your money, Marcus. Keep your perfect apartment and your girlfriend and your loveless existence. I'm done. She grabbed her suitcase and walked toward the door, feeling lighter with every step. Behind her, Marcus called out, "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this." Amelia paused in the doorway, looking back at the man she'd promised forever to. The only thing I regret is wasting 3 years trying to be someone you could love. Goodbye, Marcus. The elevator ride down felt like descending from a prison tower. Robert looked up as she emerged, his professional mask slipping when he saw her suitcase. Mrs. Hale, are you leaving? Yes, Robert, for good. She managed a smile for the kind doorman who'd always treated her with more respect than her own husband. Thank you for always being so courteous. His eyes softened. You take care of yourself, ma'am. You deserve better than... He caught himself, clearing his throat. You deserve to be happy. The black sedan was already waiting, the same driver from last night standing beside it with an umbrella despite the clear morning sky. He took her suitcase without comment, stowing it in the trunk with practiced efficiency. Mrs. Carter, he said, opening the rear door. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you to the estate. The drive will take about an hour. Amelia slid into the car, and as it pulled away from her building, she allowed herself one last look back. The penthouse windows glinted in the morning sun, reflecting nothing but empty sky. She felt no attachment to it, no sadness at leaving. It had never been her home, anyway. They drove north out of Brooklyn, through neighborhoods that gradually gave way to suburbs and then to genuine countryside. Amelia watched the landscape change through the tinted windows, feeling like she was traveling between worlds. The driver maintained professional silence, allowing her space to process everything that had happened. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Text from Marcus's lawyer already, a number she didn't recognize that was probably Melissa. Even a message from Marcus himself asking her to reconsider and think about her future. She turned the phone to silent and shoved it in her purse. After an hour, they turned onto a private road marked only by a discreet bronze plaque, Moretti Estate. The driveway wound through manicured grounds, past gardens still green despite the late October weather. The house that emerged from the trees made Amelia's breath catch. It was magnificent. A 3-story stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the Italian countryside. Wide terraces overlooked rolling hills, and she could see the glint of a lake in the distance. This wasn't just wealth. This was legacy, history, power built over generations. The car pulled up to the front entrance where Dante stood waiting, dressed casually now in dark slacks and a black sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders. His expression was carefully neutral, but his dark eyes tracked her movements with that same intense focus she remembered from the restaurant. He opened her door himself, offering his hand to help her out. Welcome, Amelia. This is your home? She stared up at the mansion, feeling impossibly small. One of them, but it's the most secure and privacy is important right now. He gestured toward the entrance where a woman in her 50s stood waiting, her kind face creased with concern. This is Mrs. Chen, my housekeeper. She'll show you to your room and make sure you have everything you need. Mrs. Chen stepped forward with a warm smile. It's lovely to meet you, dear. You look exhausted. Come, let's get you settled. But Amelia didn't move. She looked up at Dante, searching his face for answers to questions she didn't know how to ask. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. I could be anyone. You're a woman who needs help. That's all I need to know. Dante's expression softened fractionally. We'll talk later, once you've rested. Mrs. Chen will take good care of you. He was right. She was exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation with Marcus was fading, leaving her hollow and shaky. Amelia nodded and followed Mrs. Chen into the mansion, too tired to question or resist anymore. The interior was as beautiful as the exterior, all warm woods and soft lighting, artwork that looked original rather than decorator chosen, spaces that felt lived in rather than staged. Mrs. Chen led her up a curved staircase to the second floor, chattering gently about the house's history and layout. Mr. Moretti's grandfather built this place in the 1950s, she explained, opening a door to reveal a spacious bedroom decorated in soft blues and creams. He wanted somewhere that felt like the old country. The whole family used to gather here for holidays before... She cut herself off, her smile dimming. Well, it's quieter now, but Mr. Moretti keeps it maintained beautifully. The bedroom was larger than Amelia's entire first apartment had been. A king-sized bed dominated one wall, flanked by windows that overlooked the gardens. There was a sitting area with a fireplace, a desk, even a small bookshelf already stocked with novels. The bathroom is through there, Mrs. Chen pointed to a door on the left. And if you need anything at all, just pick up the phone by the bed. It connects directly to the kitchen. Are you hungry? I could bring up some breakfast. Amelia's stomach turned at the thought of food. Maybe just some tea? Of course, dear. You rest now. Things always look better after some sleep. After Mrs. Chen left, Amelia stood alone in the beautiful room, her suitcase by the door, and felt the full weight of what she'd done crash over her. She'd left her husband, left her home, run away with a stranger to hide in a mansion in the countryside like some kind of fugitive or fairy tale princess. This was insane. Her phone buzzed again, and she pulled it out to see 15 new messages. Most from Marcus's lawyer, but one from a number she didn't recognize. I know you left Marcus. We should talk. There are things you need to understand about your husband's business. Things that could help you in the divorce. Jennifer Hayes, federal prosecutor. Amelia stared at the message, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Federal prosecutor? What did the federal government want with Marcus? Before she could process this new complication, there was a soft knock at the door. Dante entered carrying a tray with tea and toast, Mrs. Chen hovering behind him looking scandalized that he was serving himself. I can do that, Mr. Moretti. I've got it, Helen. Thank you. He set the tray on the desk, then waited until Mrs. Chen retreated before turning to Amelia. You look like you've seen a ghost. I got a strange text from someone claiming to be a federal prosecutor. She showed him the message, watching his face carefully. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Jennifer Hayes. She's legitimate. Been investigating financial crimes in Manhattan for about 5 years now. Very good at her job. How do you know that? I make it my business to know important people in various fields. He moved to the window, gazing out at the grounds. The question is, why is she contacting you about Marcus? She says there are things I need to know about his business, things that could help me. Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, her legs suddenly unsteady. Dante, what kind of trouble is Marcus in? The kind that gets federal prosecutors involved usually revolves around money, fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. He turned back to her, his dark eyes serious. Did Marcus ever discuss his business dealings with you? Mention clients or partners that seemed unusual? Amelia thought back through 3 years of deliberately not asking questions, of accepting Marcus's explanations about working late and business trips without pushing for details. He kept me separate from his work, said it was better if I didn't worry about the complicated financial stuff. Convenient. Dante's tone was dry. Men like Marcus prefer their wives ignorant because it protects them. Can't be implicated in crimes you don't know about. You think he's a criminal? I think Marcus Hale is a man who values profit over ethics and surrounds himself with similar people, whether that's crossed into illegal territory. He shrugged. I'd need more information, but if the federal government is building a case, there's usually substance behind it. Amelia's mind raced. Could this affect the divorce, if he's arrested? Potentially. It could also make you a target. Dante moved closer, and his presence was both comforting and unsettling. If Marcus has been involved in illegal activities and his partners think you might know something, they could see you as either an asset or a liability. Both positions are dangerous. Oh my God. She pressed her hands to her face, feeling the walls closing in. This can't be happening. I just wanted to tell my husband I was pregnant. How did everything spiral so completely out of control? Because you married a man who was always going to implode eventually. You just happened to be standing too close when the fuse finally burned down. Dante crouched in front of her, his hands resting gently on her knees. Look at me, Amelia. She lowered her hands, meeting his intense gaze. You're safe here, he said quietly. Whatever is happening with Marcus, whatever the federal government wants, you're protected in this house. No one gets past my security. No one threatens what's mine. I'm not yours, she whispered, but there was no heat in it. No, but you're under my protection now, which amounts to the same thing. His hand squeezed gently before he stood. Drink your tea. Try to sleep. This afternoon we'll call Jennifer Hayes and find out exactly what she knows. One crisis at a time, Bella. He left before she could respond, closing the door softly behind him. Amelia sat in the quiet room, surrounded by luxury and safety she hadn't earned, carrying a child whose father didn't want them, and somehow caught up in federal crimes she didn't understand. She should be terrified. Should be planning her escape from this situation too, running back to the familiar disaster of her marriage rather than facing these new unknowns. Instead, she picked up the tea Dante had brought her and took a sip. It was perfect. Exactly the right temperature, sweetened just slightly, bergamot and honey warming her from the inside. Someone had paid attention to how she took her tea at the restaurant last night. Someone had noticed and remembered and cared enough to get it right. Amelia curled up on the window seat, watching the morning sun illuminate the gardens below. And for the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to imagine a future that didn't include Marcus Hale at all. A future where she and her baby were safe and seen and valued, where love didn't have to be earned through sacrifice and silence. It was a dangerous thought. But then again, she'd already done the dangerous thing by coming here, by trusting a man she barely knew with her safety and her secrets. What was one more risk when she'd already lost everything? Outside, she could see Dante walking the grounds, his phone to his ear, his posture radiating controlled power even at a distance. He moved like a man accustomed to command, to being obeyed without question. She should probably be frightened of him, should question what kind of man had the resources to hide someone from federal investigations and angry husbands. But all she felt was relief. Relief that someone was finally fighting for her instead of against her. Relief that she wasn't alone anymore. Amelia closed her eyes and let herself rest, the tea warm in her hands, the sound of birdsong drifting through the window. Whatever came next, whatever revelations Jennifer Hayes had to share about Marcus's crimes, whatever danger she'd unwittingly walked into, she would face it. But first she would sleep. In a beautiful room in a stranger's house, protected by a dangerous man who'd offered her the one thing Marcus never had, a choice. The future could wait until she was ready to meet it. Amelia woke to shadows stretching across the bedroom floor and the disorienting sensation of not knowing where she was. For a moment, panic flared. The ceiling was wrong, the light was wrong, everything was wrong. Then memory crashed back. Marcus's cold dismissal, Dante's quiet protection, the federal prosecutor's cryptic message. She sat up slowly, her body stiff from sleeping in her clothes. The teacup sat empty on the windowsill where she'd left it, and through the glass she could see the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. She'd slept for hours. A soft knock preceded Mrs. Chen's entrance. "Oh, good, you're awake. Mr. Moretti asked me to let you know that Ms. Hayes will be arriving at 5 o'clock. He thought you might want to freshen up first." The housekeeper's eyes were kind but assessing. "How are you feeling, dear?" "Confused, scared, like I'm living someone else's life." Amelia pushed her hair back from her face. "Is that normal? For someone in your situation?" "I'd say it's the only rational response." Mrs. Chen moved to the closet and opened it, revealing clothes that definitely hadn't been there earlier. "Mr. Moretti had these brought in. He wasn't sure of your size, so there's a range. I hope something fits." Amelia stood and approached the closet cautiously, as if the clothes might bite. Inside hung a carefully curated selection: soft sweaters, comfortable pants, a few dresses that looked nothing like the severe corporate wardrobe Marcus had preferred. Everything was in jewel tones and earth colors, rich and warm. "He bought me an entire wardrobe in the time I slept?" Mr. Moretti is very efficient when he sets his mind to something. Mrs. Chen pulled out a deep burgundy sweater and black pants. These might be nice for the meeting, comfortable but put together. You'll want to feel confident when dealing with federal prosecutors. The casual way she said it made Amelia's head spin. Does this happen often? Women showing up here needing protection from prosecutors? Mrs. Chen's expression softened with something that looked like old grief. You're not the first person Mr. Moretti has helped, but you're the first in a very long time that he's brought to the estate. Usually he arranges safe houses, new identities, transport to other countries. Bringing you here? She smoothed the sweater with careful hands. That's different. That's personal. Why would I be personal to him? We only met last night. That's a question only Mr. Moretti can answer, dear. But I've worked for this family for 30 years, and I know when he's invested in someone's safety. He's downstairs right now making calls, pulling in favors, building walls between you and whatever danger is coming. She handed Amelia the clothes. Men like Mr. Moretti don't do anything halfway. Once you're under his protection, you're family. And he protects family with everything he has. After Mrs. Chen left, Amelia showered in the palatial bathroom, washing away the residue of her old life. The hot water felt like absolution, and she stood under the spray until her skin turned pink and her muscles finally relaxed. When she emerged, she felt almost human again. The burgundy sweater fit perfectly, as did the pants. She stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Without the armor of corporate clothes, without the carefully constructed mask she'd worn for Marcus, she looked younger, vulnerable, real. Her phone sat on the dresser, and she picked it up with reluctance. 23 new messages now, most from Marcus's lawyer demanding she respond to divorce proceedings. One from Marcus himself. You're being childish. Come home, and we'll discuss this like adults. She deleted it without responding. At precisely 5 o'clock, there was a knock at her door. Dante stood in the hallway, and Amelia's breath caught at the sight of him. He'd changed into a charcoal suit, his dark hair still damp from his own shower, and he looked every inch the powerful man he clearly was. The sweater suits you, Eek, he said, his dark eyes tracking over her with approval. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to step into something I don't understand. Then we're evenly matched, because I don't fully understand it either yet. He offered his arm with old-world courtesy. But we'll figure it out together. Jennifer Hayes is waiting in my study. Amelia took his arm, grateful for the solid warmth of him as they descended the curved staircase. The mansion felt different in the evening light. Shadows gathered in corners, and she could hear voices coming from somewhere deeper in the house. How many people lived here? How many knew about her presence? Dante seemed to sense her thoughts. My security team knows you're here, and they know you're under my personal protection. That's all they need to know. Your privacy is safe. They reached a heavy wooden door, and Dante pushed it open to reveal a study that took Amelia's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes that looked well-read rather than decorative. A massive desk dominated the space, and behind it, windows overlooked the gardens now gilded with sunset light. A woman stood by those windows, turning as they entered. Jennifer Hayes was younger than Amelia expected, mid-30s with sharp features and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She wore a navy suit and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd fought hard for her position and refused to be intimidated. Mrs. Hale, she said, crossing to offer her hand, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. It's Ms. Carter, actually, or just Amelia. She shook the prosecutor's hand, feeling the strength in that grip. I'm not sure I agreed to anything. Your text was somewhat cryptic. Deliberately so. I wasn't sure if your husband monitored your communications. Jennifer glanced at Dante. Mr. Moretti, I was surprised to get your call this afternoon. I imagine you were. Dante gestured for them to sit, then positioned himself behind his desk like a king holding court. You wanted to discuss Marcus Hale's business dealings. I assume that means you have enough evidence to bring charges? Jennifer's eyes narrowed slightly. You're well informed. I make it my business to be informed, especially when it concerns someone under my protection. Dante leaned back in his chair, his posture deceptively relaxed. What do you need from Amelia? Perhaps Miss Carter should decide what she's comfortable sharing. Jennifer turned her attention to Amelia, her expression softening fractionally. I understand you filed for divorce this morning. Or rather, your husband initiated proceedings. How do you know that? Because we've been monitoring Marcus Hale for 6 months. Phone records, financial transactions, business meetings. When a target's wife suddenly leaves and divorce papers are filed within hours, we notice. She pulled a tablet from her briefcase and set it on the desk. What I'm about to tell you is part of an ongoing federal investigation. Normally, I wouldn't share this information with a civilian, but given your unique position and the fact that you may be in danger, I'm making an exception. Amelia's mouth went dry. What kind of danger? Jennifer tapped the tablet, and an image appeared. A photograph of Marcus at a restaurant with 2 men Amelia didn't recognize. Your husband has been involved in a money laundering operation for at least 3 years, possibly longer. He uses his investment firm as a front, cleaning money for various criminal enterprises. Drug trafficking, illegal gambling, even some weapons dealing. The words didn't make sense. Amelia stared at the photograph, trying to reconcile the man she'd married with the criminal Jennifer was describing. That's impossible. Marcus is meticulous about following regulations. He's always talking about compliance and legal frameworks. He's meticulous about appearing to follow regulations, Jennifer corrected. The operation is sophisticated. Multiple shell companies, international accounts, carefully structured transactions that look legitimate on the surface. We've been building our case carefully because men like Marcus have expensive lawyers who know how to exploit technicalities. Dante leaned forward, his eyes sharp. What changed? Why contact Amelia now? Because 2 days ago, we intercepted communications suggesting that Marcus's partners are concerned about loose ends. Your name was mentioned, Ms. Carter, specifically whether you knew anything about the business operations and whether you posed a risk. Ice flooded Amelia's veins. A risk? I don't know anything. Marcus never discussed his work with me. They don't know that. And in their world, a wife leaving right as federal investigators start closing in looks suspicious. They might think you're planning to cooperate with us. Or they might think Marcus told you something he shouldn't have, and you're now a liability that needs to be eliminated. The room tilted. Amelia gripped the arms of her chair, fighting down panic. Eliminated? You mean killed? I mean, we have credible intelligence that you may be in danger, which is why I reached out. I want to offer you protective custody. We have safe houses, trained marshals who can keep you secure while we finalize our case against Marcus and his associates. No. Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. Amelia stays here. Jennifer's eyes flashed. With all due respect, Mr. Moretti, federal protective custody is designed exactly for situations like this. You're a civilian. You don't have the resources or training to... Don't I? Dante's smile was cold. Tell me, Jennifer, how many times have witnesses in federal custody been compromised? How many leaks have there been in the Marshal Service over the past decade? How many people have disappeared from supposedly secure safe houses? That's an unfair characterization, is it? I've seen the statistics. I know the vulnerabilities in your system. He stood, moving to the window with predatory grace. Amelia is safer here than she would be in any government facility. My security team is composed of former Special Forces operatives. This estate has surveillance systems that would make the Pentagon jealous. And unlike your marshals, my people answer only to me. There are no bureaucratic channels for Marcus's associates to exploit. Jennifer looked between them, her expression calculating. Finally, she turned to Amelia. This is your decision. You can come with me right now, enter protective custody, and have the full resources of the federal government ensuring your safety. Or you can stay here and trust a man you barely know to protect you from serious criminals. What do you want to do? Amelia looked at Dante, standing silhouetted against the sunset, his face in shadow but his posture radiating absolute certainty. She thought about federal safe houses full of strangers, about being moved from location to location like a package, about losing what little control she had left over her own life. Then she thought about how Dante had remembered how she took her tea, how he'd bought her clothes that actually reflected her taste rather than someone else's vision, how he'd offered her a choice when Marcus had only issued ultimatums. I'll stay here, she said quietly. Jennifer's jaw tightened, but she nodded. All right, but I need you to understand the seriousness of this situation. These aren't white-collar criminals who will just sue you. Marcus's partners include people who've killed before and won't hesitate to do it again. I understand. I hope you do. Jennifer gathered her things, then paused at the door. If you change your mind, or if you remember anything about Marcus's business dealings that might help our case, call me, day or night. She glanced at Dante. Take care of her, Moretti. If anything happens to her while she's in your care, I'll hold you personally responsible. If anything happens to her, you won't need to. Dante's voice was soft, but there was steel beneath it. I protect what's mine. After Jennifer left, silence filled the study. Amelia sat in her chair, trying to process everything she'd just learned. Marcus wasn't just a negligent husband. He was a criminal, and she'd been living with him, sleeping beside him, completely oblivious to the danger. Are you all right? Dante asked, his voice gentler now. I don't know. I don't think I know anything anymore. She looked up at him, searching his face. You told her I was yours. What did you mean by that? Dante moved back to the desk, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. He handed her one before answering. It means that your safety is now my personal responsibility. It means that anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me first. And it means... He paused, studying her over the rim of his glass. It means I've decided you're worth protecting, Amelia Carter, even from yourself. I never asked for this. Any of this. No, you didn't. You asked for a faithful husband and a normal anniversary dinner. Life gave you something very different. He sat on the edge of the desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. But now you have a choice. You can let fear control you, or you can get angry. Personally, I recommend anger. It's much more productive. I wouldn't know where to start. Start with Marcus, the man who lied to you for 3 years, who used you as cover for his criminal activities, who threatened your unborn child. Start there, and let the rage build. Dante's eyes glittered in the low light. Then we channel that rage into something useful. We make sure he pays for every moment of neglect, every lie, every time he made you feel small and invisible. Amelia took a sip of whiskey, feeling it burn down her throat. Jennifer said you don't have the resources for protective custody, but this house, your security team, the way people react to you, you're not just some businessman, are you? No, I'm not. So what are you? Dante was quiet for a long moment, weighing his response. Finally, he said, My grandfather came to America with nothing but ambition and a willingness to do what others wouldn't. He built an empire that existed in the shadows. Protection, favors, information. Things people needed but couldn't ask for through legitimate channels. My father expanded that empire, made it more sophisticated, and I inherited it all when he died 15 years ago. You're talking about organized crime. I'm talking about power structures that exist outside government control. Call it what you like. He took a drink, his expression unreadable. But I've spent the last decade transitioning the family business into legitimate enterprises. Real estate, security consulting, private investigation. I don't traffic in drugs or weapons. I don't hurt innocent people. But I maintain the connections, the resources, the reputation that my grandfather and father built. Because sometimes those resources are the only thing standing between good people and the monsters who destroy them. Amelia should be horrified, should recognize this as another bad decision in a long line of them. Instead, she felt strangely calm. Is that what I am? A good person who needs protecting from monsters? You're a woman who deserves better than what life has given you so far. And yes, you need protection, but you're also stronger than you think. Dante set down his glass and looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Jennifer was right about one thing. Marcus's partners are dangerous. They will come for you once they realize you're not in federal custody. And when they do, I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that? I barely know you. True. But you know Marcus, and you know what trusting him got you. Sometimes the devil you don't know is safer than the devil you do. He stood, offering his hand. I'm not asking you to trust my intentions or my methods. I'm asking you to trust that I will keep you and your child safe. Everything else, we'll figure out as we go. Amelia looked at his extended hand, thinking about all the choices that had led her to this moment. Marrying Marcus because she'd been alone and scared. Staying silent about his neglect because she'd convinced herself things would improve. waiting in an empty penthouse for a man who'd never valued her. All the wrong choices, made from fear and desperation. Maybe it was time to make a different kind of choice, one that terrified her precisely because it felt right. She took Dante's hand and let him pull her to her feet. Okay, I trust you. His fingers tightened around hers for just a moment, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or satisfaction? Good. Now come with me. There's something you need to see. He led her through the mansion, down a hallway she hadn't explored yet, and stopped at another heavy door. This one had a biometric lock that responded to his fingerprint. Inside was a room that looked like something from a spy movie, monitors showing various camera feeds, communication equipment, filing cabinets with heavy locks. This is the security hub, Dante explained, gesturing to the monitors. Every inch of the estate is covered by cameras, motion sensors, pressure plates on all the entry points, even thermal imaging for the perimeter. Nothing gets close to this house without us knowing about it. Amelia stared at the screens, watching as guards patrolled the grounds with military precision. How many people work for you? Here at the estate? 24 security personnel working in rotating shifts. They're all former military, Marines, Rangers, a few special forces. The kind of men who know how to handle serious threats. He pointed to one screen showing the main gate. We've already increased patrols and tightened protocols. As far as anyone outside this property knows, you don't exist. What about Marcus? He knows I left. His lawyer is already sending divorce papers. Let him send them. We'll deal with the legal aspects through intermediaries. Marcus doesn't need to know where you are or who's protecting you. Dante's expression hardened. And if his criminal associates come looking, they'll find a fortress they can't breach. A man entered the security room, tall, muscular, with the bearing of someone who'd spent years following orders and giving them. He nodded to Dante with crisp efficiency. Sir, perimeter is secure. No unusual activity to report. Good. This is James, head of my security team. Dante gestured to Amelia. James, Ms. Carter is under my personal protection. She is to be treated as family. Anything she needs, any concern she raises, comes directly to me. Understood? Yes, sir. James's eyes assessed Amelia with professional detachment. Ma'am, I'll need you to stay within the main house and immediate grounds until we're certain there's no active threat. If you need to go anywhere outside the estate, we'll arrange secure transport with a full detail. The reality of her situation settled over Amelia like a weight. She was effectively in hiding, her movements restricted, her life now depended on armed guards and security protocols. This was her reality now, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she'd been unlucky enough to marry a criminal. I understand, she said, keeping her voice steady. After leaving the security room, Dante walked her back toward the main house in silence. Night had fallen completely now, and through the windows Amelia could see lights dotting the grounds. Guards on patrol, she realized, protecting her from threats she still couldn't quite believe were real. You should eat something, Dante said as they reached the dining room. Mrs. Chen prepared dinner. The table had been set for two, candles flickering between them despite the presence of electric lights. It felt intimate in a way that made Amelia's chest tighten. She sat across from Dante, acutely aware that they were essentially strangers bound together by circumstance and danger. Mrs. Chen appeared with the first course, a delicate soup that smelled of herbs and cream. She fussed over Amelia, making sure she had everything she needed, before retreating to the kitchen. She's worried about you, Dante observed, watching Amelia taste the soup. Why? She doesn't know me. She knows you're pregnant and alone and caught up in something you didn't choose. That's enough for Helen. He paused, then added quietly, She lost a daughter once. Car accident, years ago. She was pregnant too. So when she sees you, she sees second chances. A way to protect someone she couldn't save before. The soup suddenly tasted like ash in Amelia's mouth. I'm sorry, I didn't know. No reason you should, but it explains why she's so invested in your well-being. Dante's eyes were shadowed in the candlelight. We all carry our losses, Amelia. They shape how we respond to the present. Is that why you help people? Because of a loss? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Partly, though the story is more complicated than that. I have time to hear it, if you want to tell me. Dante was silent for so long that Amelia thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, Her name was Isabella, my younger sister. She married a man we all thought was respectable, successful, charming, from a good family. He seemed perfect. The words came out measured, controlled, but Amelia could hear the old pain beneath them. But after the wedding, things changed. He became controlling, violent, isolated her from the family. She was too ashamed to tell us what was happening, and I was too focused on business to see the signs. Dante. She tried to leave him once, made it as far as a women's shelter in New Jersey. He found her there 3 days later and killed her, shot her in the parking lot while she was getting groceries. His hands clenched on the table. She was 26 years old, pregnant with her first child, and I wasn't there to protect her because I didn't even know she needed protecting. Amelia reached across the table without thinking, covering his hand with hers. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I had all the resources, all the power to help her disappear completely, but she didn't know how to ask, and I didn't know she needed to. He turned his hand over, gripping hers tightly. So now, when I see a woman in trouble, a woman trying to escape a man who's destroying her, I do what I should have done for Isabella. I give her the choice to vanish, to start over where no one can hurt her. How many women have you helped? 47 over the past 15 years. New identities, new lives, financial support to get started. I've never asked for anything in return except that they stay safe. His eyes met hers. You're the first one I've brought to the estate. The first one I've protected personally, rather than through intermediaries. Why me? Because when I saw you in that restaurant, broken and alone on your anniversary, you reminded me of her, of Isabella in those last days before she died, when she was trying so hard to hold everything together and pretend her life wasn't falling apart. His voice dropped, and because when I looked in your eyes, I saw someone worth fighting for. Someone who deserved better than the hand she'd been dealt. Amelia felt tears burning in her throat. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just let me protect you. Let me do for you what I couldn't do for her. He squeezed her hand once more before releasing it. Now eat. You need your strength for what's coming. They finished dinner in contemplative silence, the weight of shared losses hanging between them. Amelia understood now why Dante had been so quick to offer help, why he'd taken such immediate action to secure her safety. She wasn't just another woman in trouble. She was a second chance to right an old wrong. After dinner, Dante walked her back to her room. At the door, he paused. If you need anything tonight, anything at all, my room is at the end of this hall. Don't hesitate. Thank you for everything. You don't need to thank me, Amelia. Just stay alive. That's all the thanks I need. He left before she could respond, and Amelia entered her room feeling emotionally wrung out. So much had happened in the past 36 hours that she could barely process it all. Marcus's betrayal, the federal investigation, the threat from his criminal partners, Dante's tragic past. It was too much. She changed into the soft nightgown Mrs. Chen had left on the bed and was about to turn off the lights when her phone buzzed. Another message from an unknown number. We know you left Marcus. We know you're talking to federal agents. This is your only warning. Stay quiet or face consequences. You have 24 hours to confirm your cooperation. Amelia's hands shook as she stared at the screen. They'd found her number. They knew about her meeting with Jennifer Hayes, and they were threatening her. She should call Dante immediately, show him the message, let him handle it. But something made her hesitate. If she showed him this, he would tighten security even more, perhaps keep her locked in this beautiful prison indefinitely. And she was so tired of being powerless, of letting others make decisions about her life. Instead, she took a screenshot of the message and forwarded it to Jennifer Hayes with a simple note. They found me. Then she deleted the threatening text and turned off her phone completely. Tomorrow, she would tell Dante. Tomorrow, she would face whatever came next. But tonight, she needed to sleep. Needed to pretend, just for a few hours, that she was safe and protected and that the danger prowling outside these walls couldn't touch her. She climbed into bed and closed her eyes, one hand resting on her stomach where her child grew, unaware of the chaos their existence had sparked. Whatever happened next, whatever threats materialized, Amelia would face them. She had no choice. But at least now she wasn't facing them alone. The pounding on her door shattered the fragile piece of sleep. Amelia jerked awake, her heart hammering as early morning light filtered through the curtains. Before she could fully orient herself, the door burst open and Dante strode in, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Why didn't you tell me?" He held up his phone, and Amelia could see a forwarded message on the screen, her screenshot of the threat sent to him by Jennifer Hayes. "You received this last night and said nothing." Amelia sat up, pulling the blanket around herself defensively. "I was going to tell you this morning. I just needed one night where I wasn't completely terrified." "One night?" Dante's voice was dangerously soft as he moved closer to the bed. "They found your number, Amelia. They know you met with federal prosecutors. And you thought waiting 12 hours to inform me was acceptable?" "I forwarded it to Jennifer immediately." "Jennifer can't protect you." "I can." He ran a hand through his hair, and she noticed he was still in yesterday's clothes, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept. "Do you have any idea what could have happened? They have your phone number, which means they potentially have your location. They could have been planning an extraction while you slept peacefully, believing yourself safe." Guilt and anger warred in Amelia's chest. "I'm sorry I didn't run to you the second I received a scary text message, but I've spent 3 years having every decision made for me, every move controlled and criticized. Forgive me if I wanted one night where I made my own choice about when to share information." Dante stared at her for a long moment, his jaw working. Finally, he said, "Your independence could get you killed. Do you understand that?" "Yes. But so could becoming completely dependent on someone I barely know." She met his gaze steadily. "You want me to trust you, Dante? Then you need to trust me too. Trust that I'm not an idiot, that I won't deliberately endanger myself or my child." Forwarding a death threat to a federal prosecutor before telling the man protecting you isn't exactly brilliant strategic thinking. Maybe not, but it was my choice to make. Amelia threw back the covers and stood, refusing to have this argument from a position of weakness. "I appreciate everything you're doing for me, but I won't trade one controlling relationship for another, even if this one comes wrapped in protection and good intentions." Something shifted in Dante's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or reluctant respect. He was quiet for several heartbeats before speaking again. "You're right. I apologize for barging in here like you were a child who'd misbehaved rather than an adult making calculated decisions." He held up the phone again. "But we need to discuss this threat seriously. They gave you 24 hours. That deadline expires in..." He checked his watch. 11 hours. The anger drained out of Amelia, replaced by cold fear. "What do you think they want?" "Confirmation that you won't cooperate with federal investigators. Assurance that you don't know anything about Marcus's business operations that could harm them." Dante moved to the window, scanning the grounds below with practiced vigilance. "The question is whether they'll actually wait for your response, or if the deadline is simply misdirection while they move against you anyway. What would you do if you were them?" "I'd assume you're already compromised and act accordingly. The threat gives you false hope that you can negotiate, that cooperation might save you. But men who send anonymous threats don't keep their word." He turned back to her, his dark eyes intense. "They'll come for you, Amelia. The only question is when." A knock interrupted them, and James entered without waiting for permission. His expression was grim. "Sir, we have activity at the perimeter. 2 vehicles, civilian models, parked on the access road about half a mile out. Occupants appear to be conducting surveillance." Dante's whole demeanor changed, becoming even more focused and dangerous. "How many?" 4 visible in the vehicles, potentially more in the woods. They're maintaining distance but making no effort to hide their presence." "They want us to know they're there," Amelia said quietly, understanding dawning. "They're applying pressure." "Yes?" Dante's voice was hard. "Showing you that walls and security can't actually keep you safe if they're determined enough. It's psychological warfare." He turned to James. "Double the patrols. I want eyes on those vehicles at all times. If they move closer, I want to know immediately." "Already done, sir, but there's something else." James glanced at Amelia, then back to Dante. "One of the men got out to smoke. Our long-range cameras got a clear facial shot. I ran it through our database." "And?" "Viktor Kozlov. He's muscle for the Bratva, Russian organized crime. Works primarily in New York doing enforcement and collections." James pulled up a photo on his tablet, showing a thick-necked man with dead eyes. "If he's here, this isn't just Marcus's business partners covering loose ends. This is serious criminal organization getting involved." Amelia felt the blood drain from her face. "The Russian Mafia? How is Marcus connected to the Russian Mafia?" Money laundering services aren't exclusive, Dante said grimly. If Marcus was cleaning money for one organization, he was likely doing it for others, and the Bratva doesn't forgive loose ends. He looked at James. Get me everything we have on Kozlov. Known associates, method heads, previous jobs. I want to know what we're dealing with. After James left, silence stretched between them. Amelia sank onto the edge of the bed, her legs suddenly unsteady. This is really happening. There are actual criminals outside who want to hurt me. Yes. Dante sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. But they won't reach you. I promise you that. How can you promise something like that? You heard James. These are serious people, professional criminals. So am I. The words were simple but carried absolute conviction. My family has been dealing with men like Kozlov for 3 generations. I know how they think, how they operate, and I know how to stop them. Amelia turned to look at him, really look at him. In the morning light, she could see the signs of his sleepless night, the tension in his shoulders, the determination in every line of his face. He'd spent the night planning for this, she realized, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. What are you going to do? First, we reinforce our position here. James and his team will maintain the defensive perimeter. Then I'm going to make some calls, remind certain people of favors owed and alliances that shouldn't be tested. His voice was calm, almost casual, but there was steel beneath it. The Bratva operates on respect and fear. If I can demonstrate that moving against you will cost them more than any potential benefit, they'll back off. And if they don't? Dante's smile was cold and predatory. Then I'll remind them why my family has survived this long in a very dangerous world. There are worse things than the Bratva, Amelia, and I'm one of them when protecting what's mine. The possessiveness in that last word should have frightened her. Instead, she found it oddly comforting. For the first time in her life, someone was claiming her not as property or accessory, but as something worth defending at any cost. I need to get dressed, she said quietly. If there's going to be a siege, I should probably put on real clothes. Good thinking. Dante stood, his hand briefly touching her shoulder in what might have been reassurance or promise. Come down when you're ready. We'll have breakfast and discuss next steps. After he left, Amelia stood under the shower and let the hot water wash away the lingering fear. She was terrified, yes, only a fool wouldn't be scared with Russian mobsters camped outside. But beneath the fear was something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Anger. Pure righteous fury at Marcus for dragging her into this, at the men threatening her unborn child, at the whole situation that had stolen her peaceful life and replaced it with danger. She dressed in jeans and a soft gray sweater, practical clothes that wouldn't restrict her movement if things went wrong. Then she braided her hair back tightly and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked different from the ghost who'd wandered rainy streets just days ago. This woman had steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. Downstairs, she found Dante in his study, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He gestured for her to sit, and she settled into one of the leather chairs, listening to the musical flow of his native language even though she couldn't understand the words. Whatever he was saying, his tone was both respectful and commanding, clearly speaking to someone whose cooperation he needed but wouldn't beg for. He ended the call and immediately made another, this one in English. Yes, I'm aware of the situation. What I need to know is whether your organization sanctioned this move or if Kozlov is acting independently. A pause. I see. Then you understand that any action against Ms. Carter will be considered a direct attack on me personally. The consequences of that should be clear. Another pause. Longer this time. Good. I'm glad we understand each other. Yes. I'll wait for confirmation. He set the phone down and looked at Amelia. That was a contact in the Bratva leadership. According to him, Kozlov is here on behalf of Marcus's partners, not as official organization business. That's both good and bad. How is it good? Because it means the full weight of the Russian mob isn't targeting you. This is a smaller operation, easier to counter. But it's bad because Kozlov has more autonomy to act without organizational oversight. He's essentially freelancing, which makes him unpredictable. Mrs. Chen appeared with a tray of breakfast foods, eggs, toast, fresh fruit, orange juice. She set it down with her usual efficiency, but Amelia could see worry in the older woman's eyes. Thank you, Helen, Dante said gently. Everything all right in the kitchen? The staff is nervous, Mr. Moretti. Word spread about the men outside. She twisted her hands together. Should I send the day staff home? Keep only essential personnel? No, maintaining our normal routine is important, but make sure everyone understands they're to stay inside the main house and immediate grounds. No one goes near the perimeter. After Mrs. Chen left, Amelia picked at her food without appetite. Your staff could be in danger because of me. My staff is well compensated for the occasional danger that comes with working for my family. Every person in this house knows what they signed up for. Dante ate methodically, fueling his body with the same calculated efficiency he applied to everything else. Besides, most of them are former law enforcement or military. James recruited people who could handle themselves in difficult situations. Still, it doesn't seem fair. Fair would be you living a quiet life with a faithful husband, raising your child in peace and safety. We stopped living in fair the moment Marcus involved himself with criminals and then abandoned you to face the consequences alone. Dante's jaw tightened. But we can still achieve just, and I fully intend to make sure Marcus and everyone associated with this situation faces justice for what they've done. Amelia was about to respond when James appeared in the doorway, his expression urgent. Sir, we have movement. Kozlov and one other man are approaching on foot. They're armed, but weapons aren't drawn. They're carrying a white flag. Dante was on his feet instantly. A parley? Interesting. He looked at Amelia. Stay here. Don't leave this room until I return. What are they going to say? I don't know, but I intend to find out. He was already moving toward the door when Amelia called out, Dante, wait! What if this is a trap? What if they're just trying to get you outside the house? He paused, turning back with something that might have been a smile. Amelia, I've been dealing with men like this since before you were born. I know every trick, every angle, every possible betrayal they might attempt. Trust me. Then he was gone, and Amelia was left alone in the study with her breakfast growing cold and her heart racing. She moved to the window, watching as Dante strode across the lawn with James and 3 other security personnel flanking him. Even from a distance, she could see the confidence in his bearing, the absolute authority he radiated. 2 men emerged from the tree line, Kozlov, thick and dangerous-looking, and another man in an expensive suit who carried himself with the self-importance of someone unaccustomed to being denied. They met in the middle of the lawn, too far away for Amelia to hear what was being said. The conversation lasted perhaps 5 minutes. She watched Dante's body language, looking for signs of tension or aggression, but he stood perfectly still, radiating controlled power. The suited man did most of the talking, while Kozlov watched everything with dead eyes, his hand never far from his weapon. Then Dante said something that made the suited man step back, his face flushing red even from this distance. Kozlov's hand actually moved to his gun, but he didn't draw it. Dante simply stared at them both, utterly calm, until the suited man turned and stalked back toward the trees with Kozlov following. When Dante returned to the study, his expression was carefully neutral. Well, that was illuminating. What did they want? To make me an offer. They're willing to leave you alone if I hand over any evidence you might have about Marcus's business operations and guarantee your silence during the federal investigation. He poured himself a drink despite the early hour. They offered me $2 million for my cooperation. That's a lot of money. It's an insult. Dante took a long swallow of whiskey. They think I can be bought like some street-level enforcer, that my protection can be purchased for the right price. What did you tell them? I told them that Amelia Carter is under my personal protection and that any attempt to harm her would be met with a response that would make them regret every choice that led to this moment. I told them to leave my property immediately and inform their employers that this matter is closed. He set down the glass with precise control. I also told them that if they or anyone associated with them comes within a mile of this estate again, I will personally ensure they disappear in ways that will terrify their associates into cooperation. Amelia stared at him. You threatened the Russian Mafia. I made a promise, not a threat. There's a difference. Dante's eyes met hers, and she saw something fierce and protective burning there. I meant every word, Amelia. You're safe here. I will make sure of it. They're going to come back, aren't they? This isn't over. No, it's not over. But I've bought us time to prepare. He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. Jennifer needs to accelerate her investigation. The faster Marcus and his partners are arrested, the faster this situation resolves itself. Over the next several hours, the estate transformed into something resembling a military installation. More security personnel arrived, grim-faced men and women who moved with the precision of trained soldiers. Additional cameras were installed, motion sensors upgraded, defensive positions established at key points around the property. Amelia watched from the windows as Dante orchestrated everything with calm efficiency. He was in his element, she realized. A commander preparing for battle, every detail considered, every contingency planned for. This was the man his grandfather and father had trained, the heir to a criminal empire who'd chosen to walk a different path but retained all the dangerous skills his legacy had taught him. Around 3 in the afternoon, Jennifer Hayes arrived with 2 federal agents in tow. Dante met them in the study while Amelia sat quietly in the corner, feeling like a chess piece being discussed by master players. "I've accelerated our timeline," Jennifer said without preamble. "We're moving to arrest Marcus and his primary associates tomorrow morning. The judge signed off on the warrants an hour ago." "What about his Bratva connections?" Dante asked. "We're coordinating with the FBI's Organized Crime Division. They've been building their own case against Kozlov and several others. Your situation has given us leverage to move faster than planned." Jennifer looked at Amelia with something like sympathy. "This is going to get messy. The arrests will make national news. Your name will likely come up as Marcus's estranged wife. Are you prepared for that level of attention?" "I don't have much choice, do I?" "You always have choices. You could still enter witness protection, disappear completely. New name, new life, federal support for you and your child." Jennifer's tone was carefully neutral. "The offer stands." Amelia looked at Dante, who stood by the window with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He didn't speak, didn't try to influence her decision, simply waited for her to choose. "I'll stay here," Amelia said firmly. "I'm tired of running, tired of hiding. Marcus and his criminal friends don't get to steal my life. They don't get to make me disappear." Jennifer nodded as if she'd expected that answer. "All right, then we'll need your full cooperation. Everything you remember about Marcus's business dealings, his associates, his travel. Even details that seem insignificant might help build our case." They spent the next 3 hours going through everything Amelia could remember. Names mentioned in passing, phone calls Marcus had taken late at night, the few business trips she'd accompanied him on. It wasn't much. Marcus had been careful to keep her isolated from his work, but Jennifer seemed satisfied that she'd gotten everything useful. As the federal agents were leaving, Jennifer pulled Amelia aside. "Off the record? You've got good instincts. Dante Moretti is exactly the kind of protection you need right now. But be careful. Men like him, they operate in shades of gray that can be dangerous in their own way. He's not Marcus. No, he's not. He's far more dangerous because he's competent and genuinely cares about protecting you. Just remember that his methods aren't always legal. And his world has its own rules that don't align with federal law." Jennifer squeezed her shoulder gently. "Stay safe, Amelia. And if you need anything, call me directly." After they left, exhaustion crashed over Amelia like a wave. She'd been running on adrenaline for days, and her body was finally demanding rest. Dante seemed to notice immediately. "You should sleep. Tomorrow will be difficult when the arrests happen." "I don't think I can sleep knowing those men are still out there." "They left hours ago. My contacts confirmed Kozlov returned to New York after our conversation. He won't risk moving against you now, not when federal attention is about to focus on Marcus's entire operation." Dante guided her toward the stairs with a gentle hand on her lower back. "You're safe, Amelia. Let yourself rest." In her room, Amelia changed into comfortable clothes and was about to get into bed when there was a soft knock. Mrs. Chen entered carrying a cup of herbal tea and what looked like a small jewelry box. "Mr. Moretti thought you might like something to help you sleep," she said, setting down the tea. "And this arrived for you earlier. He had it brought from your apartment." Amelia opened the box and felt her throat tighten. Inside was the simple gold locket her mother had given her on her 16th birthday, the last gift before the accident that took both her parents. She'd left it behind when she fled the penthouse, too frantic to think about sentimental items. "How did he—" "Mr. Moretti sent someone to retrieve your personal items before Marcus's lawyers could seal the apartment. He thought you might want your mother's things. Mrs. Chen's smile was warm. He's a good man, dear. Hard when he needs to be, but good where it counts. After Mrs. Chen left, Amelia sat on the bed holding the locket, tears streaming down her face. Such a small gesture, retrieving a piece of jewelry she'd forgotten in her panic. But it meant Dante had been thinking about her comfort, her emotional needs, even while orchestrating security measures and negotiating with criminals. She fastened the locket around her neck and felt closer to her parents than she had in years. What would they think of her situation? Her father, a high school history teacher who'd believed in justice and integrity. Her mother, a nurse who'd dedicated her life to helping others. Would they be proud of how she'd walked away from Marcus? Or disappointed that she'd married him in the first place? The tea was perfect, as everything Mrs. Chen made seemed to be. Amelia sipped it slowly, feeling her racing thoughts begin to calm. Tomorrow, Marcus would be arrested. Tomorrow, the world would know about his crimes. Tomorrow, her name would be dragged through media coverage and legal proceedings. But tonight, she was safe, protected by a man who'd promised to stand between her and danger. A man who remembered her mother's locket when she herself had forgotten it. Amelia turned off the lights and lay in the darkness, one hand resting on her stomach. "We're going to be okay," she whispered to the child growing inside her. "I promise you that. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. And we'll come out stronger." Sleep came easier than she expected, pulling her down into dreams where she wasn't running or hiding, but standing her ground with unshakable certainty. In her dreams, she was powerful. In her dreams, she was free. The last thing she heard before consciousness faded completely was the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Dante making his rounds, checking on the security of his home and everyone in it. The footsteps paused outside her door for just a moment, then continued on. Even in sleep, she felt protected. Even in darkness, she felt seen. And for the first time since Marcus had told her to get rid of their child, Amelia Carter slept peacefully through the night. The nightmare started before dawn. Amelia jerked awake to the sound of her door crashing open, Dante's silhouette filling the doorway, his face carved from stone in the pre-dawn darkness. "Get up," he said, his voice clipped and cold in a way she'd never heard before. "Now." She scrambled out of bed, her heart hammering. "What's wrong?" "You tell me." He crossed the room in 3 strides and thrust his phone at her. On the screen was her forwarded message to Jennifer Hayes, along with the prosecutor's response coordinating an emergency protective detail. "When exactly were you planning to mention that Marcus's associates threatened you last night?" Amelia's mouth went dry. "I was going to tell you this morning." "This morning?" His laugh was harsh. "They gave you 24 hours, Amelia. That deadline expires in 6 hours. And instead of telling the person responsible for your safety, you forwarded it to a federal prosecutor who just broadcasted your location to half her office staff." "I didn't think—" "No, you didn't. Jennifer's phone records are monitored as part of the investigation. The moment she received your message and started making calls about protective custody, Marcus's people knew exactly where to look." He grabbed her arm, not roughly, but with undeniable urgency. "James just intercepted 3 vehicles approaching the estate perimeter. Professional crew, heavily armed. They're not here to talk." The blood drained from Amelia's face. "Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Apologies later. Right now, we move." He pulled her toward the door, already speaking into the radio clipped to his collar. "James, status." The response crackled back immediately. "Intruders breached the south fence. We've engaged. 2 down, at least 4 still mobile and advancing toward the main house." Dante's jaw tightened. "Lockdown protocol. Get Mrs. Chen to the safe room and prepare for evacuation if necessary." They moved through the darkened hallway at a run, Dante's hand firm on Amelia's elbow. She could hear shouting now, the crack of gunfire in the distance. Her bare feet slapped against marble floors as reality crashed over her. People were shooting at each other because of her, because she'd been stupid enough to forward a text message without thinking about the consequences. "Where are we going?" she gasped. "Basement level. There's a reinforced panic room that can withstand pretty much anything short of a missile strike." They descended a narrow staircase she hadn't known existed, the sounds of conflict growing muffled behind thick walls. "You'll stay there while my team handles this." "I can't just hide while people get hurt protecting me." "Yes, you can. That's exactly what you're going to do." He stopped at a steel door, pressing his palm to a biometric scanner. The door hissed open, revealing a room that looked like a luxury bunker. Comfortable furniture, a small kitchen, monitors showing security feeds from around the estate. Mrs. Chen was already there, her face pale but composed. "Amelia, dear," she said, reaching for her. "Come sit down. Everything will be fine." But Dante caught Amelia's shoulders, turning her to face him. His dark eyes burned with intensity and something that looked almost like fear. "Listen to me very carefully. You stay in this room no matter what you hear, no matter what you see on those monitors. The door will only open to my biometric signature, or James's. Anyone else tries to get in, there's a weapon locker in the back corner and both of you know how to shoot." "Mrs. Chen?" "I remember the training, Mr. Moretti." "Good." He looked at Amelia again and his expression softened fractionally. "I will come back for you, I promise. But I need you to trust me and stay here. Can you do that?" Amelia nodded, not trusting her voice. Dante's thumb brushed her cheek once, a gesture so tender it made her throat ache, and then he was gone. The steel door sealed behind him with a sound like a tomb closing. Mrs. Chen guided Amelia to the couch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, even though the room was climate-controlled. "It's going to be all right," she said quietly. "I've seen Mr. Moretti handle worse situations than this. People are dying out there because of me." Amelia stared at the monitors, watching dark figures move through the grounds, muzzle flashes lighting up the pre-dawn darkness like lightning. "If I hadn't forwarded that message, if you hadn't, they would have found another way. Men like the ones Marcus associated with don't give up easily." Mrs. Chen's voice was firm. "You're not responsible for their violence. They made their choices long before you came into the picture." On the monitors, Amelia watched Dante emerge from the house, flanked by 4 security personnel. He moved with lethal grace, a handgun in his grip, every line of his body radiating controlled violence. She'd known he was dangerous, had sensed the capacity for darkness beneath his cultured exterior. But seeing it manifested in real time made her breath catch. A figure appeared from behind a garden wall, weapon raised. Dante moved before Amelia could even process the threat, his gun barking twice. The attacker went down. "He's protecting you," Mrs. Chen said softly, watching Amelia's face. "The way he couldn't protect Isabella? Don't waste his sacrifice by feeling guilty. Feel grateful and survive." The firefight lasted another 20 minutes, though it felt like hours. Amelia watched the monitors with her heart in her throat, counting Dante's security team, tracking their movements, flinching every time she heard gunfire. 3 more attackers fell. One of Dante's men went down, clutching his shoulder, but was dragged to safety by his teammates. Finally, James's voice crackled over the intercom. "Threat neutralized. All hostiles down or in custody. Perimeter secure." Amelia sagged against the couch, relief making her dizzy. Mrs. Chen patted her hand. "See? I told you everything would be fine." But it wasn't fine. Not really. Because the steel door remained closed, and Dante didn't come. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Amelia stared at the monitors, searching for him among the security personnel securing the grounds, dealing with casualties, coordinating cleanup. She saw James directing operations, saw the wounded man being tended to by someone who looked like a medic, but no Dante. "Where is he?" she whispered. Mrs. Chen's expression tightened. "I don't know, dear, but Mr. Moretti can take care of himself. He's been doing it for a very long time." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the biometric lock hissed. The door opened to reveal Dante, blood splattered across his white shirt, his face grim but uninjured. Amelia was on her feet and moving before she could think, crossing the room to grab his arms and check him for wounds. "Are you hurt? Is this your blood?" "Not mine." His hands came up to still hers, gripping her wrist gently. "I'm fine, Amelia. Breathe." She realized she was shaking, adrenaline finally catching up with fear. "I watched you out there. I saw you." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Saw you kill people. Saw you move through violence like it was choreographed. Saw who you really are beneath the cultured exterior." "I know what you saw." His voice was steady, but there was something haunted in his eyes. "And if it changes how you see me, I understand. But I won't apologize for protecting you. I'm not asking you to apologize." Amelia's fingers curled into his blood-stained shirt. I'm asking you not to do it again, not to risk yourself like that for me. That's not a promise I can make. He pulled her closer, and she could feel his heartbeat under her palm, rapid but strong. Alive. You're under my protection, which means I stand between you and anyone who wants to hurt you. That's not negotiable. Mrs. Chen cleared her throat delicately. Perhaps this conversation should continue after Mr. Moretti has cleaned up, and we've all had some breakfast. I'll go check on the kitchen staff. After she left, Dante guided Amelia back to the couch, sitting beside her with careful movements that suggested he was more banged up than he'd admitted. We captured 2 of the attackers alive. They're being questioned now. By who? The police? His slight smile held no humor. By people who know how to ask questions effectively. The police will be involved eventually, but right now I need information more than I need to follow proper legal channels. You mean torture? I mean persuasion. There's a difference. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving it disheveled. These men came here to kill you, Amelia, to eliminate what they saw as a threat to their operation. I need to know who sent them, what they know about the federal investigation, and whether there are more attacks planned. And then what? This just keeps happening? People keep coming after me until someone finally succeeds? No. Then I end this permanently. His voice dropped to something cold and final. Marcus's criminal partners made a mistake when they threatened you. They revealed themselves, showed their hand. Now I know who they are and what they're capable of, and I'm going to dismantle their entire operation piece by piece until there's nothing left to threaten you with. You can't go to war with organized criminals. I'm not going to war with them. I'm going to destroy them so completely they won't remember how to spell war. He stood, pacing to the monitors. I've already made calls. Associates of mine in New York, Chicago, even Miami. People who owe me favors, who understand that attacking someone under my protection is attacking me directly. By the time the sun rises, Marcus's partners will have problems in every city they operate. Their supply chains disrupted, their accounts frozen, their safe houses compromised. They wanted to eliminate a threat? I'm about to show them what a real threat looks like. Amelia stared at him, finally understanding the scope of his power. This wasn't just a wealthy man with good security. This was someone with reach that extended across the country, connections that could mobilize criminal and legitimate resources with equal ease. Someone who'd spent decades building exactly the kind of empire that could wage war and win. You're going to do all this for me? Someone you met 3 days ago? Dante turned from the monitors, and the intensity in his gaze made her shiver. I'm doing this because no one threatens what's mine and walks away. I'm doing this because you deserve to live your life without fear. And I'm doing this because... He stopped, jaw working as if fighting with himself over what to say next. Because what? Because when I look at you, I don't see Isabella anymore. I see Amelia, strong, resilient, worthy of protection, not because of who you remind me of, but because of who you are. He crossed back to her, kneeling so they were eye level. These past few days, watching you navigate impossible situations with grace and courage, I've realized something. I'm not just protecting you out of guilt or obligation. I'm protecting you because I don't want to imagine a world where you don't exist in it. Amelia's breath caught. Dante, I know this is terrible timing. I know you're still processing everything with Marcus, dealing with being pregnant and hunted and living in a stranger's house. But I need you to know that when this is over, when you're safe and free, I want you to stay. Not as someone under my protection, but as someone He stopped again, seeming to struggle with vulnerability in a way he hadn't struggled with violence. As someone I care about, deeply. Her hands came up to frame his face, feeling the roughness of his stubble, the warmth of his skin. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave and kind and stronger than you give yourself credit for. I know you make terrible tea-drinking faces when you think no one is watching, and that you talk to your baby when you're alone in your room. I know you deserve better than Marcus ever gave you, and I want to be the one who shows you what better looks like. His hands covered hers. But only if that's what you want. If you'd rather I help you start over somewhere else, set you up with a new life far from all of this, I'll do that too. Your choice, Amelia. Always your choice. She should say no. Should recognize this as another bad decision, getting involved with a dangerous man while still technically married to a criminal, while pregnant and vulnerable, and completely dependent on his protection. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was madness. But her heart, bruised and battered as it was, whispered something different. It whispered that Dante saw her in ways Marcus never had, that he'd risked his life to protect her, had offered her choices instead of ultimatums, had made her feel valued and visible and worth fighting for. "Ask me again," she said quietly. "When this is over, when I'm safe and the baby is born and I've had time to remember who I am outside of fear and survival. Ask me again then, and I'll give you an answer. That's all I can ask for." He pressed his forehead to hers for just a moment, and Amelia felt something shift between them, some acknowledgement of possibility that hadn't existed before. Then he pulled back, his expression hardening into something more businesslike. "For now, we focus on ending this threat. I need you to stay in the safe room while I coordinate the response. James will bring you updates. What about Jennifer Hayes? She needs to know what happened." "She already knows." She called the moment she heard about the attack, offering federal support. His smile was grim. "I politely declined. The federal government has done enough damage. This is personal now, and I handle personal matters my own way." Over the next 72 hours, Amelia watched from the safety of the panic room as Dante orchestrated what could only be described as a controlled demolition of Marcus's criminal network. Reports came in through James, bank accounts seized in coordinated raids across multiple states, safe houses raided by police who'd received anonymous tips, key players arrested on outstanding warrants that had mysteriously surfaced after years of being buried. Marcus's partners found themselves under investigation from every angle, their operations collapsing like houses of cards. Marcus himself was arrested on the second day, FBI agents taking him from his office in handcuffs, while news cameras captured every moment. Amelia watched the footage on the monitors, feeling nothing as the man she'd married was led away. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without his veneer of success and power. "How do you feel?" Mrs. Chen asked gently, sitting beside her. "Empty, like I should feel something, satisfaction or vindication or even pity, but there's just nothing there." Amelia pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the flutter of movement that had started a few days ago. "Is that wrong?" "No, dear. It means you've already moved past him emotionally. He's not worth your feelings anymore, good or bad." She patted Amelia's hand. "Focus on the future now, on your baby and building the life you want." On the third day, Dante finally emerged from his study where he'd been coordinating operations. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes and tension in his shoulders, but there was satisfaction in his expression. "It's done," he told Amelia, sinking onto the couch beside her. "Marcus's network is completely dismantled. His partners are either in custody or have fled the country. The ones who came after you specifically." His smile was cold. "Let's just say they won't be threatening anyone ever again." "What does that mean?" "It means they've been turned over to authorities with evidence of their crimes. Life sentences, all of them, in federal prisons where I have people who'll make sure they're never comfortable." He took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "You're safe now, Amelia, truly safe. No more threats, no more hiding." She should probably ask more questions about what exactly he'd done, how he'd accomplished so much in so little time, what laws might have been bent or broken in the process. But she was too tired to care about the details. All that mattered was that the nightmare was finally over. "What about the divorce?" she asked instead. "Marcus's lawyer reached out this morning. Given his legal situation, he's willing to sign whatever terms you want. No contest, no fight. He just wants it done quickly." Dante's expression darkened. He also signed away all parental rights to the baby. Jennifer mentioned it was one of the conditions of his plea deal, complete severance from his former life. Amelia absorbed this, waiting to feel something. Relief? Sadness? But again, there was just emptiness where Marcus was concerned. "Good. I don't want him anywhere near my child anyway." "Our child could have better," Dante said quietly. "If you wanted. A father who would choose them every day, who would protect them and love them, and never make them feel like they were anything less than a miracle." Her breath caught. "Dante, I'm not asking you to decide now. You said to ask again when this was over, when you were safe, but I want you to know the offer stands." His hand moved to rest gently on her stomach, and Amelia felt the baby kick as if responding to his touch. I would be honored to be this child's father, to give them the family they deserve, to give you the partnership you should have had all along. Tears burned in Amelia's eyes. You really mean that? I've never meant anything more. He pulled her close, and she let herself lean into his warmth, his strength, his absolute certainty. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later, processed with unusual speed given Marcus's eagerness to sever all ties before his trial. Amelia signed the papers in Dante's study, watched by Jennifer Hayes, who'd become an unexpected ally throughout the process. "You're sure about this?" Jennifer asked, reviewing the settlement one last time. "You could probably get more given his criminal assets." "I don't want his money. I just want to be free of him." Amelia set down the pen, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Is that everything?" "That's everything. Congratulations, Ms. Carter. You're officially single." Jennifer gathered her documents, then paused. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice, both in leaving Marcus and in trusting Moretti. He's not perfect, and he operates in some gray areas I can't officially condone, but he's one of the good ones. He'll take care of you." After Jennifer left, Amelia wandered through the mansion that had become her home. 4 months she'd been here now, watching autumn give way to winter, her pregnancy progressing from terrifying secret to visible reality. The staff treated her like family, Mrs. Chen fussing over her nutrition and rest, James's security team nodding respectfully whenever she passed, and Dante. Dante had been patient and present, giving her space while making it clear he wasn't going anywhere. She found him in the library, reading by the fireplace. He looked up as she entered, a smile softening his features. "How did it go?" "It's done. I'm officially divorced." She settled into the chair across from him, resting her hands on her rounded belly. "Free to make my own choices now." "Good." He set aside his book, giving her his full attention. "And have you made any choices?" "Maybe one." Amelia took a breath, gathering her courage. "You asked me to tell you when I was ready, when I knew what I wanted." Dante went very still. "And do you know? I know that I feel safer with you than I've ever felt in my life. I know that you see me, really see me, in ways no one else ever has. I know that my baby kicks every time they hear your voice, like they already recognize you as someone important." She leaned forward, holding his gaze. "And I know that when I imagine the future, the life I want to build, you're in it. Not because I need protecting anymore, but because I choose you. Because I—" She paused, testing the words in her mind before releasing them. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Dante Moretti. And that terrifies me almost as much as everything else that's happened." He was out of his chair and kneeling before her in an instant, his hands framing her face with exquisite gentleness. "You terrify me too. The depth of what I feel for you, how much power you have to destroy me. It's more frightening than anything I've faced." His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "But I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you. Choosing this fear. Choosing to build something real and lasting with someone who makes me want to be better than I am." "You're already better than you think. Only because you make me want to be." He kissed her then, soft and careful, mindful of her pregnancy and her fragility and everything she'd survived. "Marry me, Amelia. Not because you need protection or security, but because we choose each other. Because we both deserve the kind of love that doesn't have to be earned." "Yes." The word came easily, no hesitation, no doubt. "Yes, I'll marry you." They were married 3 months later in the mansion's garden, spring flowers blooming around them like blessings. It was a small ceremony, just Mrs. Chen, James, a few of Dante's trusted associates, and Jennifer Hayes, who'd become something like a friend through the shared experience of bringing down Marcus's empire. Amelia wore a simple cream dress that accommodated her very pregnant belly, and Dante looked at her like she was the only person in the world. "I promise to see you," he said during their vows, his voice steady and sure. "To choose you every day, to protect you not because you're weak, but because you're precious to me. To be the partner you deserve and the father your child needs. From this day forward, you will never be invisible again." Amelia's own vows were simpler. "I promise to trust you with my heart, my child, my future. To build a life with you based on choice rather than necessity. To love you not for what you can give me, but for who you are. And to remind you every single day that you deserve happiness too. 5 weeks later, on a warm June evening, Amelia went into labor. Dante held her hand through 14 hours of contractions, murmuring encouragement and promises, never once leaving her side. And when their daughter finally emerged, tiny and perfect and screaming with indignation, he cried. "She's beautiful," he whispered, watching as the nurse placed the baby on Amelia's chest. "Absolutely perfect." "Sophia," Amelia said, touching their daughter's downy hair. "After your grandmother, if that's okay." Dante's eyes widened, then filled with tears again. "You do that? She's as much yours as mine. More, maybe, since you chose her when you didn't have to." Amelia looked up at him, at this man who'd saved her in every way a person could be saved. "Thank you for giving us this life, for showing me what love actually looks like. Thank you for trusting me enough to accept it." He kissed her forehead, then Sophia's. "I love you both more than I thought I could love anything." Marcus was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison that fall, his former partners receiving similar sentences. Amelia attended the sentencing hearing, not for closure, but as a witness to the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. She stood in the courtroom with Dante beside her and Sophia sleeping in her arms, and felt nothing but profound gratitude that she'd escaped. As they left the courthouse, a journalist called out, "Ms. Carter, or is it Mrs. Moretti now? How does it feel to see your ex-husband sentenced?" Dante moved to intercept, but Amelia stopped him with a gentle hand. She looked at the journalist, at the cameras, at the public record being made, and spoke clearly. "It feels like justice, not just for his crimes, but for every woman he tried to make small and invisible. I hope his sentence gives them the same thing it's given me, the freedom to build lives they actually want to live." Later, back at the estate that had become home, Amelia sat in the nursery watching Dante rock their daughter to sleep. He sang to her in Italian, old lullabies his grandmother had taught him, and Sophia's eyes drifted closed with absolute trust. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly, noticing Amelia's contemplative expression. "That a year ago, I was trapped in a penthouse waiting for a man who didn't love me, carrying a baby whose father didn't want her. And now," she gestured around the room they'd decorated together, full of love and careful choices. "Now I have everything I never knew I needed." "We have everything," Dante corrected, settling Sophia into her crib with practiced care. "This is as much your gift to me as mine to you." He was right, Amelia realized. She'd given him something too, a second chance to protect and love, a family to replace the one he'd lost, a reason to believe that tragedy didn't have to define the rest of his life. They stood together in the quiet nursery, watching their daughter sleep, and Amelia felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Wholeness. The bone-deep certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." Dante pulled her close, and they stayed that way for a long time. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and built something bright enough to light the way forward. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle and cleansing, washing away the last remnants of the past. And inside the mansion, wrapped in warmth and safety and love, Amelia Carter Moretti finally came home. The woman who'd once felt invisible now stood at the center of her own life, chosen and cherished and absolutely, undeniably seen. And she would never disappear again.